what's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast. Welcome back, more accurately, to you, to me, to Phil. What's going on there, Senator?
You know, just recovering from vacation. You'll need a vacation after my vacation, you know what I'm saying?
Well, that's what happens when you're your age and you have the family situation that you do with many miniature humans. But this is going to be a good one today. You're going to enjoy it. We're going to get into 5 pressing questions the Patriots are dealing with heading into camp. But we also have some news just before training camp breaks. And it's not the same old how the Patriots going to do. How about the offensive line? What about the wideouts? We're going to talk about Bill Belichick and Robert Kraft because Bill responded to the détente broken by Robert, once again, Robert breaking détente, by going on a Julian Edelman podcast and saying, the question that he's most frequently asked is what was the smartest thing that he did? And he said, I gave up a number 1 draft pick, this is Kraft, for a coach that had won only a little over 40% of his games. I don't know if there are any Jets fans here. I think Bill Belichick to come to the Patriots in 1999 was a big risk. Send it up to me. And I got hammered in the Boston area, but he was with us for 24 years. And we did pretty good. So Robert has said this before, and he said it multiple times. I walked the plank for Bill. I stuck my neck out there for Bill. Art Modell, numerous people in the media said it was a stupid idea and it was a huge risk, and he did get hammered in the media. But at some point, Bill decided enough is enough. You know what? Keep making it sound like I got left out at the end of the road here, Phil. And Bill pushed back with this. A statement to Don Van Natta of ESPN. Now, Don Van Natta and Seth Wickersham, of course, chronicled throughout the Patriots' dysfunction the issues that emerged between Belichick and Brady and Kraft, and they really kicked over a lot of rocks. And there was always a very, I don't know, it was not kind to Bill by any stretch, right?
No, not always. But it wouldn't surprise me if they were getting Bill's perspective throughout on those stories too.
Yeah. But there was enough in there where I heard and read things that were unseemly for Bill. Although the defense of, for instance, the trading of Jimmy Garoppolo, Bill never wanted to do it and came out kicking rocks over it. And that was passed back on. So, you know, in the end, it never should have. He should have been traded and the other guy should have stayed. But let's stay on topic. Here's what Bill had to say from his office in North Carolina to Don Van Natta. As I told Robert multiple times through the years, I took a big risk by taking the New England Patriots head coaching job. I already had an opportunity to be the head coach of the Jets, but the ownership situation was unstable. I had been warned by multiple previous Patriots coaches. I guess that would be Parcells and Rod Rust, as well as other members of NFL organizations and the media, that the New England job was going to come with many internal obstacles. I made it clear that we would have to change the way the team was managed to regain the previously attained success. Fair, and I think that Robert was open to that. Bill also went on to say, in continuing to gild the lily a little bit, as they say, the Jets were a solid team after 3 years of rebuilding under Bill Parcells, which included an AFC Championship game appearance in 1999. Checkmark, confirmed that it did happen. And they did improve. Meanwhile, the Patriots organization had dismantled the 1996 AFC Championship team and become one of the worst in the AFC. It didn't help that they were $10 million over the cap heading into my first season as head coach in 2000. That was the internal issue. See, Bill, unfortunately, we're still alive, those of us who were coaching the team at that time.
Covering the team, not coaching.
Right. Covering.
You were coaching just from afar.
So just in terms of this dismantled team, Phil, let's roll through the players who were on this team when Bill took over. It was Drew Bledsoe, Terry Glenn,
Adam Vinatieri,
Ty Law, Willie McGinnis,
Lawyer Malloy,
Terry Glenn, did I say him already? Ted Johnson. Many, many, many useful players who would form the core of the team that would then go forward and win Super Bowls. Did they need Bill to give them some structure? Did it get to a point where Pete Carroll was getting treated like a substitute teacher? Check and check. But they had not been dismantled. They had destroyed their salary cap with contracts to guys like Max Lane and Todd Rucci, which were way overextending, and McGinnis and Ted Johnson, for instance. They couldn't pay everybody, and then they did. But the notion that Bill's trying to spin that this was one of the worst teams in the AFC is absolutely patently false. They had no depth. It was a mismanaged cap, but there was talent all over the place.
And they finished the 1999 season with the same record as the Jets. So to in that one paragraph to Don Van Natta to say that one team was actually pretty damn good and it was a big risk for me to leave them, and the one that I went to had actually just been dismantled after going to the Super Bowl when I was there, by the way, was he assistant head coach? I think he was, or assistant to the head coach, or with Bill Parcells in 1996.
Yes, he was secondary coach.
So that team that I was a part of, they had dismantled, and I brought it back to life. It's not really true. You're manipulating the math.
The other interesting thing is the way he phrases the Jets' appearance in the AFC Championship game in 1999. It was January 1999. It was the 1998 season, right. Bill. Okay, 1999, the Jets. Was that the Tom Tupa? Was that the Vinny Testaverde blowing out his... Whatever it was. They went 8-8. There was a Ray Lucas game. I was rooting for the Jets. They were a fun team. Ray Lucas playing quarterback at the time. Be that as it may, I 1,000,000% understand Bill Belichick's finally bristling at saying, this mangy coach who nobody wants has been left at the end of the driveway, and I'm going to bring him in and break your arm patting yourself on the back about that. So I can understand Bill responding. Are you surprised, though, Phil, that he did?
A little bit, just because it's not typical to see Bill Belichick, of all people, reach out to media. Not that we know that that's what happened, but to respond publicly in this way, ever, to something like this. I don't know. It shouldn't surprise me at all, because the pettiness for Bill is just, he's always gone next level when it comes to that, and this feels petty to me. I think it's petty in some ways on both sides that we're still talking about this in these terms. But for him to say, you know what, Don, I would actually like to comment on that. Why don't you take it? Go grab a pen. Let's get to it. And to go about it that way is unexpected, to say the least, for Bill.
You know what? What more diplomatic way he could have done this? And there's no way he's going to do that, because as smart, intelligent, and well-spoken as he is, he's just not going to articulate it this way. I've been hearing this for going on 25 years, that Robert feels as if I was a cast-off and not fit to coach anywhere, and that he really stuck his neck out for me. And while I appreciate forever the opportunity to come back and coach, he needed me, I needed him. And he desperately needed me, because the team was hitting the rocks. You had a great core that the troika of of Bobby Greer, Pete Carroll, and Andy Wazenchuk were just throwing money at people. And Robert was behind that. That's the interesting thing about the critique that gets leveled at Robert Kraft for being cheap right now.
Comes up again in this story.
Everybody got paid.
Did you notice the line about how the Patriots are 31st out of 32 teams in the NFL since the salary cap was instituted in spending?
I didn't see that. Where do you say that?
It's one of several lines here that to me are not quotes. No, this is from Don Van Natta. But even though they're not quotes, Tom, are they nuggets that are maybe planted in the reporter's ear by the people he's talking to, or the person he is quoting in the story? They're 31st out of 32 teams in the league. Couldn't you see if he is petty enough to drop the dismantling of the AFC Championship team? Is it not something that he would bring up in conversation? How about the end of the story where it's pointed out that, Bill Parcells is being inducted as a contributor, and Tom Brady went in last year, and they shuffled Tom Brady right into the Patriots Hall of Fame as fast as humanly possible. And the very last line of the story, it points out Belichick, 73, still not a member of the Patriots Hall of Fame. Is that just something that Don Van Natta decided? It could have been, but is it something else that might have come up in conversations as he's putting together the story? That wouldn't surprise me either.
The salary cap thing that I'm reading now, for the Patriots, exceeding the cap was an anomaly. New England ranks 31st out of 32 teams since the NFL instituted the salary cap in '94. A challenge Belichick overcame as coach through ruthless management of the roster. Again, to reiterate, Bill was the one, and Felger hates this point, but it's friggin' true. He was hired because of his economic tight-fistedness and his adherence to managing the salary cap. It's been said time and again, as an economics major at Wesleyan, he comes in. Every time there was a player who came close to needing a second contract, he got lopped off. And that wasn't Robert Kraft. That was Bill managing the cap. Do you think Robert Kraft thought it was a terrific idea to trade Logan Mankins or Richard Seymour on the eve of the season? I don't think so. Or cut Lawyer Malloy? I doubt it. But Bill was able to find the best player in the history of the game and convince him to take less.
How about not pay Tom Brady?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, right.
And taking less, too. Brady kept saying, oh, good. I'm finally going to get some players around me. Oh, all right. Well, Brandon LaFell, I guess, is pretty good, too. It's just...
Or even at the very end. I mean, the final decision on Brady. Like, you know, that was... It felt like at the time, the owner probably would have been willing to go to greater lengths to keep him around, and the head coach saying, no, it's too much money.
It's so Bill Belichick fully within his rights to finally push back and say, you know what? I'm not the world's greatest slappy. I was a pretty good coach, and I appreciate you putting yourself out there, but you knew and I knew that I was probably going to work out. But to change history, as he so often does, is so disingenuous.
I still do feel as though Robert Kraft, and I get it on your end, and I understand why Bill Belichick would want to be quoted in something like this and to get his side of the story out there. But I still do feel like Robert Kraft's a little closer to reality than Bill here in saying it was a huge risk. And for Bill to say, I think he chips away at his own credibility at something like this when he says some of the things that we see in this story. Well, it was actually a huge risk to leave the Jets. Well, yeah, you did have a head coaching job in hand, but you were dying to get out of there because you didn't like the ownership situation, because you were so desperate to leave that you filed an antitrust lawsuit against the league to make sure that you could get out of there. And Robert Kraft did have to give up a first-round pick. And you were a guy who was not great with the media, who was going to come to a more discerning media core and fan base that was hungry to win. And so, like, to say he was leaving a great situation to go to a messy one here as a means to get back at Robert, to me, almost makes his real, legitimate point feel a little more hollow, just because of the way he went about it.
Yep, you were fine. And then you started trying to... Look, we do have transcripts and videos of that press conference when you were extracting yourself as HC of the NYJ, and you specifically mentioned, Bill, that you did not want to have Bill Parcells over your shoulder any longer. The fact that you would mention, Bill, it was 90% I'm going to be back, 40% I'm going to be back, 30%, maybe 70%, maybe next year. You wanted to be away from Bill Parcells. Not that you don't have a good relationship with him now, but at that point, enough was enough in your mind. And you saw a much better situation in Massachusetts, near Nantucket, for your family to land. This was ideal, with very low expectations given the situation that the team faced. So, all right.
You were right, by the way. That was the season, the 99 season when they went 8-8, the Jets.
Yeah.
Vinny Testaverde torn Achilles in the first game of the year, I think.
First game of the year against the Patriots.
Yeah.
Tom Tupa came in and actually played pretty good. Tom Tupa, Patriots punter.
You know who the Jets added that year in the first round with the 18th pick, the following year, following Testaverde's injury?
Chad Pennington.
Your guy.
I know that stuff. Could have had Spurgeon win, but they passed on him. All right.
Is it a hard G in Spurgeon?
No. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have training camp beginning next Wednesday. Okay? Next Wednesday will be the first practice. Is that something that you're really going to say, wow, they're going to start swapping some paint out there? No, they're not. They're going to do some mini camp type workouts on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. In earnest, you can expect a nice training camp practice beginning the following Monday. So a week from Monday, training camp will begin in earnest. Not that we're not going to be there talking to Mike Vrabel on Tuesday and select players, and talking to players and observing the mini camp practice. Phil, all that in mind, is there anything that table setting wise we need to hit before we get to that? One thing that is interesting to me, as a sidelight before we get to our 5 pressing questions is they still have $60 million worth of cap space. The second place team in the NFL in terms of cap space is $45 million. Bill, you're right again. So to me, they have to spend the money.
I don't know how they're going to, though, unless they can pull off a trade for one of these disgruntled receivers, which to me is interesting, and it's something they should pursue, and it's something that we here at this station, I think in some ways, I know we talk about it, we should be talking about it more. There should be real pressure on this team to add talent around its quarterback. Because I just did the rankings before we all left for vacation on the next Pats podcast, Tom. They are still, in terms of their weaponry, one of the worst in football. I had them ranked at 31. You could easily make the argument they should be at 32. And so there should be pressure on this team. And good for you for asking the question to Vrabel right before we all left for vacation. Hey, what's going on here? McLaurin, looks disgruntled. I know you can't talk about other players, but are you guys pursuing things like this? And he acknowledged that, yes, they are. They know they need help. They need more help. And they have plenty of money. And they've got plenty of picks. And so if it takes a second and a third, those are the lengths I'd be willing to go to. I heard Michael Felger on BST last night. I'm going to be on with him on that show tonight. We're recording this on Wednesday. Talking about how he'd be willing to give up a first-round pick for Terry McLaurin because he's sort of a blue-collar number one receiver, which are very hard to come by, would fit your culture, would help everybody. Those are the kinds of moves they should be considering right now because of the amount of money they have available to them, as you mentioned.
It's a lot. It's a lot of dough. You can roll it forward into next year. You can look at the free agents. The Patriots actually have not a great cap situation next year because a lot of their numbers are accelerating. 2 in particular, and this is fascinating as hell. I looked at the cap the other day and looked at some guys who might be able to they're not looking to cut money right now, but I would say keep an eye on 2 players. Mike Onwenu and Kyle Duggar have the highest cap numbers on the team this year, $21 million and $15 million. Next year, their cap numbers rise. Mike Onwenu's cap number is going to be $25 million, and Duggar's will be $17. Meanwhile, Onwenu has a $16 million base next year. That's a lot of dough. As Bill O'Brien mentioned on draft night, Mike Onwenu is a really good player when he's engaged. Not specifically the quote, but talking about the offensive line in general, he was saying really good player when he's engaged. If you are the highest paid player on the team and you happen to be a guard, you better be the best friggin' guard that anyone can find. And he just hasn't been that. So
it is surprising to me. I had not looked at the cap situation for the Patriots in 2026. I just am looking at it right now on Over the Cap. They are near the bottom of the league. They are currently almost $14 million, scheduled to be $14 million over the cap. However, when you look at who's on the team that year or who's scheduled to be on the team and the number of veteran players that have zero guaranteed dollars coming to them that year, making them very easy to move on from, Mike Onwenu's at the top of the list. Kyle Duggar's at the top of the list. Hunter Henry, zero guaranteed dollars for him in 2026. Kendrick Bourne, Jabril Peppers, and then you can get down to some lower money guys. But Anthony Jennings, Garrett Bradbury, Antonio Gibson, these guys are all under contract. Mac Hollins, they're under contract. Zero guaranteed dollars coming their way in 2026. So you can
they'll
reset.
They'll have some prorated signing bonus that'll hit.
Yeah, they might, but I think they are still. Let's see.
Hit the thing on. What you could save.
Yeah, you're saving a lot on all these guys.
A lot.
Yeah, you'd be saving. Mike Onwenu, for instance, his cap number for 2026 is $25 million. You would be saving if you cut him. Let's see, the pre-June 1 cut, $17.5 million. He would have $7.5 dead money on the books, but you're still saving 17.
So the point is not about whether or not Mike Onwenu is going to be released before the season begins. I would imagine that's not the case. They want good players. He's one of those. Same thing with Duggar. But they do need to perform this year. And again, that's $60 million in cap space. It's not all going to be 60 at the end of the season, but you can roll it forward, a portion of it, to help offset this money that they already have extended. So it's interesting to look at in terms of trades, in terms of what they'll do in the future with their personnel, and in terms of when you look at these guys and their cap numbers, who really needs to perform to avoid a haircut. I mentioned 5 pressing questions. to delve into for the New England Patriots training camp. I mentioned 5 pressing questions for the Patriots as they approach training camp. And I think, Phil, we have a nice variety here. All sides of the ball. There's only 2. And
how dare you? 3.
Okay. Meanwhile, there are pressing questions confronting the New England Patriots as they approach training camp. Phil and I are going to go through 5 of them. We're going to keep these tight. We're going to keep them succinct. We're going to go a little bit point counterpoint, or at least point viewpoint, and we're going to trade them. The first question I want to present to Phil is the Patriots defense really going to be as dominant as we think? And I preface that by saying this is a team that 2 quarterbacks allowed 27 touchdowns, came up with only 7 picks. They were 32nd in sacks per attempt, 28th in interception rate, 26th on third down, allowing 43.26 conversions, 25th in the red zone in terms of allowing touchdowns, and 28th in goal-to-go situations in terms of allowing touchdowns. Phil, to go from bad to real good and dominant, that's a huge leap.
It is a huge leap. And so if you're telling me we're expecting the Patriots to be a top 5 defense in 2025, that to me is going too far. They will not be that dominant this year. If you're telling me they could be sniffing top 10, I could buy in, but I do still have reservations. While on the one hand, Tom, great cornerbacks. I really believe in what they have in coverage in Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis. Really good defensive tackles, Milton Williams and Christian Barmore, guys who can get after the quarterback. What would concern me if I'm Mike Vrabel, if I'm Terrell Williams, who we haven't seen, by the way, and hopefully we'll be able to see him out there at camp, and he can sort of put his imprint on this defense. What would concern me is what they're able to do against the run. Running the football matters in the NFL now. It's come back. It's sort of a retro league in some ways. The 4 best offenses in football last year were the 4 best rushing teams in football. And part of that was a couple of those, Buffalo and Baltimore, had great rushing quarterbacks. But by and large, teams are running it more, in part because of what they're seeing from opposing defenses with 2 high safeties and light linebackers and light defensive tackles. So it's sort of this cyclical nature of the league is sort of coming back around to the run game. And the Patriots, I think, are going to be using 2 high safeties. I think they're going to be using light linebackers, Robert Spillane and Jack Gibbons, and they've got light defensive tackles, including a guy they just paid a ton of money to, who played less than half the snaps, Tom, and he's not really known as a defensive run stuffer in Milton Williams. So that's the concern to me. Where offense is going in the NFL, does it match up with what the Patriots have defensively? Do they have enough to stop where offenses are going in 2025? I'm not sure. So I'm hesitant to say they're going to be a dominant group.
Yeah. That's a great point. And, you know, it could be an Achilles heel. Will it kill them? No, most likely not, because that's the key with having corners of the ilk that you do. If you have to commit more in terms of Jabril Peppers or Kyle Duggar coming down in the box, and you can't play, cover 2 all the time because you have to put more people, more bodies there and try and dissuade the run game, you do have Christian Gonzalez and Carlton Davis and Marcus Jones in the slot, and you have guys who can cover. So it should be a massive leap. What I'm most interested in is seeing how they deploy their pass rush and how much attack mode they go into, because you can't just sit around with a straight face. And it's the game that I'll always look back at. 40-7 loss to the San Diego Chargers, and Justin Herbert just flat-footed with the ball under his chin, looking like one of those claymation things that you used to find in the mall. Surveying. It can't go on. Can't go on anymore. We move on. Phil, what will a Drake May year 2 leap look like? For a guy who struggles with his L's, that was a good job by me. I could have said, what will a leap look like? But I didn't.
That was tremendous. You also had a Gild the Lily earlier in this podcast, and I give you a lot of credit for that one as well.
Yeah. Well, it's a Tom Brokaw situation. I think it's some kind of a Pennsylvania thing. My mother was from Pennsylvania initially. So Gilda. May had 15 touchdowns and 10 picks in 2024. He was sacked 34 times in his 12 starts, 88.1 quarterback rating, 2276 was his yardage. Also ran for 421. So if you project those over 16 games, probably right around 3,000 yards. 19 touchdowns, 12 picks or so. So what's a year 2 leap going to look like statistically?
Statistically, you should be getting to, and in my opinion, exceeding the 2-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. And you and I both would agree one thing that has to be at or near the top of the list for him in terms of what he needs to improve is just straight up ball security, just not throwing it to the other team and not fumbling it and taking care of yourself when you're, out in the open field and potentially running into people who want to do you harm. But that to me would look like, is he going to get to 30 touchdowns? Again, I think this offense is going to hold him back, meaning the people that are in that offensive huddle with him. It's not a good unit. It's not an average unit. It's a below average unit, both on the line and with the weapons. So to expect him to go 30 touchdowns to 10 picks next year, to me, is not realistic.
Right.
To me, it's not realistic for him to be Jaden Daniels, who was 25 touchdowns and 9 interceptions even. But can you get to 25 and 12? Can you get to 28 and 13? Can you be in that range where you are out there every week, and so you're producing a certain number of touchdowns, and yes, you're going to throw it into harm's way occasionally, and occasionally Kayshon Boutte's going to give it to the other team. You're going to hit him in the hands over the middle of the field, and it's going to turn into an interception. I think those are the kinds of numbers we should be anticipating for Drake May.
What about rushing yards?
To me, that should really go up.
I agree. He should be in 500 or 600.
It should go up. I wish I should be able to pull up a total right now in terms of.
So while you look for it, he was 421 with 7.4 yards per carry.
421 last year?
Yeah, and the 7.4 yards per carry were really buoyed by some really long runs, including a 40-yarder at one point when everybody had their back turned. But
you're going to get those occasionally as a guy like him. You're going to get man coverage, and you're going to be able to rip off a 35-yarder. Jaden Daniels was an 891-yard rusher last year. 600 to me feels realistic. And it might be more, Tom, because I think Josh McDaniels, we'll get to this in a little bit, so I don't want to completely spoil it. I think he's just going to be more willing to run Drake May than those guys were last year, where they were very open. We don't want to have him carrying the football in a designed run sort of situation until the very end of the year when they started to get pressed on it a little bit. And so 600 to me, 650, that's certainly in the realistic range, and to me should be sort of the floor that you're shooting for.
What's your biggest concern about him not making that year 2 leap? Is it protection? Is it an inability to master Josh McDaniels' offense? Is it injury because he's run too much? Is it lack of fundamentals that were really hammered into him under Alex Van Pelt? What would be your number one concern, or is it the personnel around him that would be the holdback? Yeah,
to me, it's the line still. And they've improved at left tackle, in my opinion, although we will see, what Will Campbell looks like. But we still don't know who's playing left guard for them. And we still don't know what they have at center. It looks like Garrett Bradbury is going to be at least the leader in the clubhouse when we get to training camp to play that center spot. But he was released for a reason. The Vikings are a team that's looking to win a championship. And he's been there forever. And they let him go for nothing. And I don't know how he fits. Even if he plays better than he did last year in Minnesota, he doesn't look on the hoof like he fits with that group. Micah Wendu's 350 pounds. Morgan Moses is a gargantuan human being. Will Campbell is 6'6", 320 pounds. I don't know who's playing left guard. He's going to look like a Lilliputian in there in the middle. And I think they're going to try to run over people and lean on teams and get downhill and not do this wide zone thing, which they did in Minnesota with Garrett Bradbury because he's a good athlete. So if his style doesn't fit with what Josh McDaniels wants to do as a rushing offense, and he's not that good anymore to begin with, I'm not sure he's the player there either. So I just worry more about the line even more than I do the weapons, because I've seen Josh McDaniels have subpar weapons in the past. 2021 would be an example, and actually churn out some pretty good numbers offensively with those types of guys.
Center position is so underrated in terms of a decent team turning into a good one, or a bad one turning into a decent one. If you don't have that position and that chemistry between quarterback and center, sometimes it can really harpoon your chances. All right, the next question, offensive-minded, is the Josh McDaniels offense of 2025 going to look much, much different from prior versions, or will Josh revert to the staples and it's going to be about 85 to 90% what we've seen in the past?
I want to get your thoughts on this first.
All right.
Because you've been covering Josh McDaniels as long as anybody. And his MO has been to really do whatever the situation calls for. And so I wonder how you envision this offense taking shape in 2025.
I'm glad you lobbed that back to me because Josh's personality colors my answer to this. He will want very much to change and take advantage of everything that he has at his disposal, whether it be Drake May or Diggs or Hunter Henry's ability. And he looks at situations and players. I remember he thought that Jonnu Smith was one of the most talented players that he had ever seen, physically talented and gifted. But when Jonnu Smith couldn't tap that talent, there was okay, well, this is not working. I'm not going to bang my head against the wall. I'm going to do something different. So I think that Josh will enter this season with all great intentions of being novel, being experimental, trying to do things differently from the things that he learned, and he has been. But he will pull back if he believes his personnel can't do it. And I think 2018 is a great example. He's not going to pull back and change the offense because he's not innovative or he doesn't have the sack to do it. He's going to change because he's like, I'm asking this guy to play above the rim, and he's 5'7". It's not going to happen here. Let's try and do something else that takes advantage of his abilities. So to me, the 2018 team did not have good wide receivers. Let's turn ourselves into a power running team. We got that. 2021 team, 2020 team, had Cam Newton. Well, let's try and get ourselves 7 wins because the team's, not very good. Let's get 12 touchdowns on the ground out of Cam Newton and 700 yards rushing. Same thing with 2021. Take advantage of what you have. So all that said, you're going to want to tap into Drake May's mobility and see if he can be a 600, 650-yard rusher. But there will also be let's pull it back. So to me, if you're pulling it back, can you pull it back with Drake May and return to what? What Van Pelt was putting in? What the college game is like? Or bringing him up to speed on read option type routes that puts everything in his hands at the line of scrimmage?
I think what will be really interesting is to find out, what Josh McDaniels was inspired by during his season off, because we've heard him talk about, and he hasn't gone into much detail on it, but we've heard him talk about how he was welcomed into other programs. I think it was probably college and pro last year as he was just trying to, figure out where the game was going. And some of the things in terms of what we have seen over the last couple of years and the trends and how the game has changed, I think can mesh really well with what Josh McDaniels has done in the past. And so if you're asking me what the offense will look like, if we want to, go back in Josh McDaniels' offenses of old and sort of point to those, I think it's going to be a mix of 2020 with Cam Newton, because you're going to see some quarterback run stuff. I think he's going to be their best offensive weapon. Drake May is. And so to move the football, Josh McDaniels is going to be willing to use his legs. So you're going to see the design quarterback run stuff, quarterback power, quarterback draw, all that stuff we saw with Cam Newton. Too much of it probably, quite frankly, because he couldn't throw. But you're going to see that. And I think there's going to be a good amount of late 2018 in there too. We saw a lot of fullback this spring, Tom. There's not even any pads involved in these practices. And we saw guys lined up in the backfield in those traditional under center, fullback, I formation types of sets. So that's going to be part of what they do too, what they did with James Devlin in 2018. Could there be a sprinkling of 2011 with 2 tight ends? That's another way in which offense has changed. You're seeing more and more. Now, I think it's up over 20%, according to ESPN, up over 20% league-wide, the use of 2 tight end sets. So that's something that he's done before. Can he do it now with Hunter Henry and Austin Hooper? I don't know. Neither of those guys are true, road grading types, the way they had one with Gronk in 2011, obviously. and neither one is the route runner that Aaron Hernandez was. But can they get the kinds of matchups they like? Because, this is sort of where the league is going. They're trying to stress defenses and say, okay, if you want to play with these light boxes and these two high safeties, we'll put two tight ends on the field. And if you want to stay in that sort of look, we do it. These guys aren't great blockers. They're not going to kill you, but they're good enough. And we'll be able to run for 4.5 yards a clip every week. So I think he's going to pull from a variety of different years that he's already shown us, or where he's already shown us what he likes, and he'll use all of them.
Yeah, and the funny thing about tight ends is I love tight ends. The tight end depth is non-existent on this team, and it's something that I really think that they would have been well served to try and get somebody out there. But I think they're at a premium right now, as you would acknowledge as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right, move on now to the next question, which is, which of the recent do-nothing draft picks has the best chance to revitalize his career? And we'll go chronologically here from the 2024 draft. We have Jalen Polk and Caden Wallace, Layden Robinson, Javon Baker, and tight end Yaheem Bell. You have Marte Mapu. We can start looking at him as a guy who really hasn't had the opportunity to do much, nor done much when he was out there. Injuries have been a factor, but I constantly see Marty Mapu watching practices. And also City Soap, gone from starter to afterthought. Finally, Cole Strange. Which of them have the best chance? Let's start with the Polk, Baker, Wallace, Robinson grouping.
I'm going to say of that grouping, this guy's not my number one overall pick for this exercise. But he's sort of my dark horse for surprising people after having a nothing year last year. That'd be Caden Wallace.
Okay.
Caden Wallace, I think, is going to have an opportunity to potentially play on the inside. There's somebody else whose name you just mentioned who I think is going to have the first crack at that left guard job. But I think Caden Wallace is going to be coming up right behind him.
Cole Strange.
If Cole Strange isn't ready, I could see Caden Wallace getting time at left guard and potentially starting, which I can't say about a lot of other guys on that list.
Right.
So if he's out there for 70 some odd snaps as a starting left guard, even if it's, weeks 8 through 18, that to me is probably going to be the most impactful guy from that group. So I'd go with Wallace.
Okay. I'm going to say Jalen Polk. I can't watch a guy be stellar at times during practice and outright stink to the point where you can't use him on Sundays. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So
we haven't seen him practice yet this year, though.
No, but he looked great during camp, and even in just doing the rehab stuff on the other field, he's got a shoulder, so he can't get hit. But he can do a lot of things in terms of making catches, being explosive. He looks like a good friggin' player.
It looks like he's moving well. Let me ask you this, because I agree. But for it to have gone so poorly last year, was it, A, he was just banged up, and whatever the shoulder thing was just completely derailed his season, and even though they had him out there and they had him active, there was a game in Buffalo where I think it was Peppers was a late scratch because of a soft tissue thing, and they put him in uniform. They didn't use him for a single second, I believe. Mm-hmm. He was going to be a healthy scratch in Buffalo, or so we thought. He wasn't on the injury report. So it could have just been injury, or is there just something to his makeup, Tom, that they missed in the lead up to the draft because they thought they were getting a dog. They thought they were getting a leader. They thought they were getting a guy who's going to do all the little things and all the dirty work. It seemed like after that failed potential, I think it was game-winning touchdown pass that Jacoby Brissett threw him in the back of the end zone. He did not get 2 feet down. He was arguing with us in the locker room after the game that he did get 2 feet down, going crazy on the field. It seemed like after that moment, his season completely went in the tank. And that suggests to me, because there was plenty of season left for him to get it right, and they certainly could have used him, there's just something to his makeup that is not conducive to NFL success. It's a hard game, and I think you show who you are sometimes. Not that, everybody has hard moments, but how you handle those situations, I think, is really indicative as to what type of character you have, and it's football character. I'm not going to say he's a bad guy.
No.
But there's something going on there that is making me hesitant to believe in what I'm seeing on the practice field. That's all.
And when you say you have the best hands in the league, which he did at one juncture, and just was very cocksure about things, and then you don't perform. Look, it's one thing if Randy Moss says that and then goes out and performs at a certain level, or if I go, I'm the best putter here at this golf course, and I'm not, and then I miss the putt, it's because I thought I could speak it into existence, and I couldn't. And the pressure becomes more intense. So to me, I think he's whistling past the graveyard when he talks about these things that he can do. Did he not prepare as well as he could have because he thought he had it in check? Or does he have a confidence issue that he's trying to mask because of what he's saying? To me, it's on him in terms of how much does he want it to work in New England? How much does he want to succeed in this uniform for this fan base in front of this media horde who has used him as a punchline? I'm sure that he can find a job someplace else. Tyquan Thornton found a friggin' job. Don't know if he's doing much with it.
He ran a 4.2, though. That's the other thing. Like, there's just physical skills sometimes that you don't need to be that kind of fast to have success in this league.
Jalen Reagor found another job.
He did. He did. But he also was fast. He was that Lamborghini. Don't, lest you forget, he was a Lamborghini. Yeah, so it makes me hesitant to say that, they could use him. And so that's a good reason for why, when we're talking about guys to make an impact, there needs to be a need at your position in order for you to make an impact. There's certainly, I think there are snaps available at receiver. If he wants to emerge and become even just like a solid number 3 type of guy, they could use that. And so it'll be up to him, and it'll start in training camp.
Baker's probably cooked. Just too much luggage from last year, and we watched it during the mini camps. It's still kind of testing Mike Vrabel's patience. Yaheem Bell, 7th round tight end out of Miami, seemed like, we sit there on the thing, he moves like Hernandez. No, he doesn't. Layden Robinson, I did that. It was me. Layden Robinson, he's got a shot. Why can't City So play anymore?
And that's a good one to bring up. And I think the same things I said about Caden Wallace, maybe we should be saying about City So, right? I mean, if Cole Strange isn't the answer, and again, if I had to pick one name from our list here, who's going to make good, I would go Cole Strange because I think he's got the inside track to that starting left guard job if we're just sitting here and guessing today. And I do like his makeup. I think he is a tough kid who has already gone through a lot in his pro career. And just talking to people and getting to know him a little bit ourselves, I think we both feel that way about Cole Strange. City So, to me, was not a bad player 2 years ago. And whether it was injury again or something else, last year, was it he didn't fit in the zone scheme stuff? Neither did Mike Owenu. I mean, you paid him, so you had to keep him around, but that was a bad fit from the jump, and they eventually actually kind of got away from the zone stuff because they realized finally it was such a bad fit with the personnel they had. But there's no reason to me that he shouldn't be considered for that left guard job as well.
Fair. And Marty Mapu? I don't get it.
Injury. I think he missed that much time as a young player. He's coming from it's not like he's coming from Georgia or Alabama.
And they're starting to move on. I mean, the drafting of Craig Woodson, who we're about to get to in our final portion here, not identical players. One's a free safety, one's almost a box safety.
I think he's even listed. I think Mapu is listed as a linebacker right now, and they've invested there. I don't think there's space for him at this point.
And he was such a wonderkind as far as many draft analysts were concerned. My favorite pick.
He was a lot of people's favorites. I could tell you from guys who coached him at the Senior Bowl. So he's surrounded by other college stars and high-end picks that he was one of their favorite players. He's a smart guy. I think he really blew people away with how he could articulate how he sees the game. It just hasn't translated actually on the field.
That brings us to our final question. When will we start to see some yield from this year's crop of rookies? Which ones will translate quickly? You have, of course, the first-round pick, Will Campbell. You'd have to put your money on him translating quickly. But then Travion Henderson, second-round pick, still not signed. That's a sticky wicket. Kyle Williams, a third-round wide receiver. Then you have Jared Wilson, the center, guard, interior lineman from Georgia. Craig Woodson, safety that we referred to just moments ago. Josh Farmer, defensive tackle. Braden Swinson, edge guy. And Andres Boragalas, your kicker.
So many of these guys should be contributing in real ways the first week of the season, shouldn't they?
Henderson, Campbell,
Borregales.
Borregales.
And again, I'm still looking at that receiver position as needing a difference maker, and we'll see if we'll see if Stephon Diggs is ready. If he's not, Kyle Williams should be right in the mix early this season too. And I get back to the offensive line. Garrett Bradbury, if he's no good, Jarrett Wilson, you've got to be ready to go as well.
EFTON, Efton. He's part of the crop of rookies.
We've seen crazier things, and I understand spring practice is not training camp, and football is a different beast with pads on. There aren't a lot of guys who have moved like that you and I have watched in spring practices over the years. That's all I'll say, because I don't know what it's going to look like when the pads are on. Maybe he can't block anyone, Tom. And if they want to be a running team and they want to, take advantage of these two high shells and that, everybody else is doing around the league, and Josh McDaniels wants to run a lot of duo and condensed formations, and receivers need to be able to block like Jacoby Myers in 2011, he's probably not doing that. That's my guess.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe there's no space for him because of that. But he's quick and he can catch. And they need help at receiver. I don't know. Yeah, I'm putting one and one together to make three, and I'll tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if he was on this roster.
Do you think Braden Swinson can do anything for him in the edge this year? I mean, he looks. You look at him, the numbers that he put up at LSU, not the numbers, but his tape at LSU, the commentary on him as a player during the draft. Do you think he can have any impact as an edge guy early?
I think potentially as a sub rusher.
Who's the other dude? 44. Calavon.
No. Calavon Chason.
Right.
Yes.
Is he a former first rounder or second?
He's a first rounder. First round pick. Jacksonville Jaguars. And has bounced around the league, and I thought looked pretty good in the spring.
I did too.
But
got
again,
a lot of time out there.
It's hard. You're in the trenches there. There's no pads. Who knows what it actually looks like? Here's the difficult thing about Swinson for me, and maybe I'm scarred by the Josh Uche experience. But if you're going to be a sub rusher and you're going to be a niche player, and that's your only role, right? Obvious passing downs. I'm not saying those don't exist anymore, but the way the league is working now, again, the run game has become more important. I would also say this, and this will be interesting to see how Josh McDaniels maybe changes, is one of the ways the game has changed. Everybody's going for it on fourth down now, which changes how you handle third down. Third and 4 now doesn't, for a lot of teams, doesn't have to be a passing down anymore, because you can run it and get 2 and feel pretty good, depending on where you are on the field, feel pretty good about getting it on fourth down because you're an aggressive team, you run the ball well, you like your offensive line, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it makes it more difficult, in my opinion, in 2025 to have guys on the field who only do one thing. And that, to me, is, at least right now, at this point in his career, based on people that I've spoken to, scouts and coaches who watched him before the draft, Braden Swinson seems like a guy who's probably only going to do one thing for you.
I like that observation on him, and I also find, as you're talking about it, sub-rushers or guys who are a little undersized, I just think Harold Landry's a friggin' weapon. I really do. I think he is so fast, so explosive, and he has shown the production that Uche was not able to, despite being a similar player.
And a good run player, in a way that we really never saw from Uche. He is a little undersized, but I give him credit for that. He is consistent. I won't sit here and tell you I watched every snap of the Tennessee Titans. But in terms of things like his PFF grade against the run, he's been pretty good. So even though he's a little undersized, the way they've used him in Tennessee has sort of highlighted his skill set on those early downs.
Among Kyle Williams, Travion Henderson, and Will Campbell, which of those players has an opportunity to be in the 75th percentile of players at their position?
Ooh, I'm going to go...
How about 60th percentile?
Yeah.
Better than more than half the league.
I'm going to go Henderson. And if you're listening to this, you might be saying, well, did they screw up the pick? I thought you liked the pick with the Will Campbell pick. What are we talking about? I like the Will Campbell pick even if he's an average left tackle this year.
Takes a minute.
If he's between, Tom, 14 and 20 in the league in terms of left tackles in the NFL. That to me is a win for year one. Eventually you want it to be better than that.
Because of the 32 teams, they've had the 33rd best.
Exactly. It's been a disaster there, and they needed to get it fixed. So if you can get a guy who can fix it and give you average tackle play, that's a win. But I would say if you're looking for a potential star, or at least above average player, Henderson feels like a safer bet to me. He's just so explosive. He can do it in the pass game. I think he has the potential to be not Jahmyr Gibbs, who was a first-round pick for the Lions a couple years ago, but Jahmyr Gibbs light. Can he, maybe not touch the ball quite as much, but on a per-touch basis give you something similar? That to me is what you should be looking. You spend a second-round pick on this. The only time you spend a second-round pick, Tom, too, is, number one, if your roster is so freaking loaded, it's just a luxury pick, and you're like looking at the board, and it's like, I know he plays running back, but he's so much better than all these other guys. Let's just add him to the mix and see what we can get here. That kind of felt like, like Shane Vereen was a second-round pick a few years ago. Or you think the guy has a real chance to contribute, and you're a talent-starved offensive unit, and you want to use him a lot. And so I think they're going to use him a lot. I don't know what that means for Ramondre Stevenson. I don't know what it means for Antonio Gibson. But they need help on that side of the ball, and it would be malpractice, in my opinion, to just let him sit on the sidelines and be like a 5-touch-a-game guy as a quote-unquote third down back. So I'm wondering, and it's one of the things I want to see most during training camp, is how much is he on the field?
So, ladies and gentlemen, my takeaway from this portion of the program is that the Patriots could be a very, very, very young team in 2025. Not just the quarterback position, but at left tackle, at running back, at wide receiver, whether it be the slot with Efton Chisholm or Kyle Williams as an outside guy, Craig Woodson at safety. There's an opportunity for a base to have been laid and a foundation to have been built that they are able to erect something on. For Phil Perry, I'm Tom Curran. We'll talk to you next week on the next episode of Tom Curran's Patriots Talk Podcast.